any member wish to give a notice of a motion? I see the holiday is wet. Can we start with the Honorable Terry Blanche, the Honorable Hatton, the Honorable, I'll take you from this side to this side.
Thank you, Chairperson. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I move with notice that in the next sitting of Council, that Council debate President Jacob Zuma's midnight cabinet reshuffle on the 30th of March 2017 and its severe impact on the South African economy, solutions to minimize the subsequent impact on the country and restore investor confidence to enhance investment and create jobs. I so move. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Hatton.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I move with notice that in the next sitting of this Council, that the Council debates the exorbitant expenses and rationale for the deployment of Cuban engineers and technicians to the Department of Water and Sanitation and its impact on the engineering graduates of South Africa. I thank you.
The Honorable Mpambo Sibukwane. Order, order.
On behalf of the DA, I hereby move with notice that in the next sitting of the Council, that Council debates the negligence and disregard for the Constitution by the Department of Social Development in executing the Constitutional Court ruling and subsequent continuing illegal deductions. I so move. Thank you, Chairperson.
The Honorable Labaskachni, you're covered. Is there any member in this row? Honorable Dlamini, was your hand up? No? Any member in this row? The Honorable Smith?
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I wish to move a notice of a motion that this House notes that the Mashamaiti family have captured the Mogalakwena local municipality by capitalizing on its resources for personal benefit, that the municipality is in absolute disarray due to factional fighting by the ANC, and subsequently service delivery is affected negatively. The issuing of contracts and payment of contractors are delayed or have been cancelled in mid-process. That this House debates at its next sitting of Council the effect of nepotism, factionalism, and corruption on the growth of municipalities and job creation. I so move.
Is there any other hand in this row? The Honorable Kaula?
Ngiyathokoza sihlalo bese sikukhumbule sihlalo. On behalf of Inkatha Freedom Party, I move a notice of a motion that the House debates the increasing levels of road carnages in our country. Over the Easter weekend in 2017, South Africa lost more lives than in 2016, a 51% increase in total. This becomes worse when it is festive season in the country. I so move.
Thank you, sir. Is there a member? The Honorable Julius, the Honorable Mikilaikos.
Thank you, Chairperson. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I move without notice that in the next sitting of Council, that Council debates the causes and effects of South Africa's recent credit ratings downgrades to junk status and its subsequent impact on our economy and citizens. I so move.
The Honorable Mikilaikos.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby wish to move that at its next sitting, Council debates the legality and constitutionality of political parties having and employing their own military wings post-1994. I so move.
The Honorable Nita.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. I hereby move without motion, without notice, that Council notes and congratulate the Eastern Cape boxing sensation Zolani Tete for winning and crowned as the new world boxing organization, bantamweight champion on the 23rd of April. Also notes with happiness that this was after weekend historic victory that saw him winning his second major world championship in convincing points victory over the Philippine Arthur Villania in England. Further notes that the former junior weight bantamweight Tete sets his eye on the conquering of the World Boxing Association and the International Boxing Federation before he retired from the boxing. Congratulates the last born for holding the South African flag high, the province of the Eastern Cape, the Buffalo City Metropolitan Municipality as a boxing maker, for his best conquering of the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there any other member who wishes to make a motion without notice? Motion. We are now moving to the motion without notice. We start from this side. The Honorable Mgwebu, the Honorable Mikalaikas.
On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move without notice that the Council notes that over the weekend, scores of people seeking medical assistance and legal advice filled the community hall in Zozo village in the Eastern Cape, where optometrists, nurses, and legal advisors offered up their time to serve the village free of charge. The community members were bussed in from 5 villages in Kwaleja in the Eastern Cape. This medical legal camp aims to bring much needed help to rural areas so that community members need not travel to clinics which most are unable to afford. This initiative was started by Senior Prosecutor Althea Rose in 2015. This initiative shows that there are people who still care about the poor and less fortunate in the Eastern Cape. I move that this House congratulates Ms. Rose and her team of professionals for their noble sacrifice and wish them success in reaching out to other villages. I so move.
Is there any objection to this motion? None. The Honorable Mikalaikas.
Thank you, Chairperson. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby wish to move without notice that Council notes that President Zuma was booed and heckled other things that here would have been deemed unparliamentary at yesterday's May Day events in Bloemfontein. Notes that this public condemnation by the ANC's alliance partner Kgosana and its affiliate unions NUM, SATU and NEHAWU follows a series of anti-Zuma marches across the country by various members and stalwarts of the ANC, SACP, opposition parties and civil society. Notes that President Zuma has publicly indicated that he is willing to step down as president if it is the will of the people, and that the will of the people across party political lines by now has been made quite clear. That this House, as representatives of the people, call upon President Zuma to adhere to the public will by resigning immediately in the best interest of the country. Alternatively, without interfering in the business of the other House, call upon our honourable colleagues in that House to vote in the best interest of our nation and in the interest of those who elected us when the motion of no confidence serves before them. I so move.
Is there any objection to this motion? The motion has been objected to. Order, members. The motion has been objected to. It may not be proceeded with. It will now become a motion, a motion without notice. The motion without notice will now become a notice of a motion. Honorable Julius, your hand was up? Okay. Honorable Engelbrecht.
Madam Chair, thank you. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby wish to move a motion without notice that this House notes the Western Cape High Court judgment that the process of procurement of 9.6 gigawatts of nuclear energy was unlawful and unconstitutional. That this judgment vindicates the DA stance that this process was unlawful as it was not debated in Parliament and there was a lack of public participation. The DA will, as always, continue holding the ANC national government accountable for its unlawful actions. I so move.
Is there any objection to this motion? Is there an objection? There is an objection. The motion is not carried. It now becomes a notice of a motion. The Honorable Julius.
Thank you, Chairperson. I also note that the ANC is so divided in this.
Is that a motion without notice?
No, ma'am.
Yes.
My apologies for that note. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move without notice. The Council notes that on Friday, 21 April 2017, one of the saddest tragedies hit South Africa. 20 people died, including 14 school children, when a taxi that transported learners collided with a truck on the Groblersdal Road outside Bronkhorstspruit. The Council welcomes investigation into the cause of the accident and hope that this will ensure that such incidents are reduced in future, and that Council sends condolences to the bereaved families. I so move.
Is there any objection to this motion? Thank you. The motion has been agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. The Honorable Kaula will be followed by the Honorable Mtetwa. The Honorable, please proceed, sir.
Ngiyathokoza sihlalo egameni leqembu inkatha yenkululeko ngethula isiphakamiso esingenasexwayiso ukuba lendlu yaqaphela ukuba umkhandlu kamasipala waseNquthu uzobamba ukhetho lwa wonke amawadi ayi-17 ngomhla ka-24 kuMeyi 2017. Lokhu kwenzeka ngemva kokuba iqembu lenkatha elabe liwine lo masipala ngokhetho luka-Agasti ngo-2016 libanjwe inkunzi ngaba semagunyeni banquma ukuhlakaza umasipala ngoba nje nakho behlulwe ukwamukela ukuphuma emandleni. Siyaqaphela ukuba sebeqalile ukusetshenziswa kwezinhlaka zikahulumeni ukusabisa amalungu nabaholi benkatha ngokubabophela amanqina enyathi babhece ngobende kusetshenziswa oklebe kepha sithi kasiphela amandla okhethweni siyangodli futhi kuyocaca. Ngesikhathi osibanibani ontaba kayikhonjwa belibele ukuhwebhana thina siqwashisa abantu ngengozi yobehlela abantu baseNquthu uma bengenza iphutha ekade sebelilungisile. Kumphakathi waseNquthu sithi qhubekani nisathembe siyi-IFP, asintshontshi, asigebengi, asisengi ezimithiyo, sethembekile. Ngiyathokoza sihlalo.
Ngiyathokoza baba. Is there any objection to this motion? Motion has been objected to, and therefore it becomes Date Mtetwa.
On behalf of the African National Congress, I hereby move without notice that the Council note with profound sadness that a 53-year-old legend boxing trainer, Nick Duran, died in a bike accident near Clarence in the Free State on Friday, the 21st April. He was one of the top-rated boxing trainers that he produced 95 South African champs in all 17 weight divisions, 38 world champs, and 27 international champions through the WBC, WBA, IBF, WBO, WBF, and IBO organizations. And he was also the president of the Crusaders Bike Club that has more than 500 members. South Africa has lost one of its best trainers in the history of boxing, who was not only a trainer, promoter, manager, but also a father figure to his stellar trainees, who also represented and positioned our country's boxing talent among the best in the world. Duran was recently awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award at the South African Boxing Award last year for his immense contribution to the boxing industry. Therefore, charge the boxing fraternity to follow and keep his legacy. May his soul rest in peace. I so move.
Thank you, sir. Is there any objection to this motion? Motion has been agreed to in terms of Section 65. The Honorable Zwane.
Thank you, Chairperson. I hereby move without notice that Council 1 notes with deepest sympathy that the Pan-Africanist Congress, PAC stalwart, freedom fighter and former Tshwane Metropolitan Council Councillor Philip Kgosana died at the age of 80 on the 19th of April 2017 and laid to rest with a special provincial official funeral on the 28th of April. 2, Council notes that as a PAC Western Cape Regional Secretary, he led more than 50,000 anti-pass law protesters from Langa in Cape Town in a march to Parliament on the 30th of March 1960. 3, that Council notes that after the banning of political organizations, he fled to Ethiopia and Angola, where he gained military training on guerrilla warfare and also pursued his studies, where he attained masters in economics. 4th, Council further notes that he was a brave and devoted freedom fighter who dedicated his life to the emancipation of Black South Africans that saw him harboring the establishment of a farmers' association in Winterveld, north of Pretoria. And finally, Council therefore, as Council, we therefore celebrate a life well spent for the people's cause. May his soul rest in peace. Also move.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there any objection to this motion? Motion has been agreed to in terms of Section 65. The Honorable Dlamini.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. On behalf of the People's Party, the African National Congress, I hereby move without notice that Council notes with profound sadness and concern that the 2 adults and 18 school children lost their lives in a head-on collision between a bus and a truck on R25 road between Bronkhorstspruit and Verina on Friday, the 21st April. Also notes that this horrific accident happened when the school bus was on the way back home as it was turning in an intersection when the truck hit it and the fire started to burn all over. Further, painfully notes that amongst the dead were a father and his 2 children, as well as 3 siblings, and the pupil attended the Refano Primary School and the Mahlenga High School, and were all from Volvekop and Verina in Mpumalanga. It is with great appreciation that both Gauteng and Mpumalanga provincial governments had jointly worked to assist the funeral and other arrangements with the families. Our heartfelt condolences to the affected families, the schools, and the communities. I so move.
Thank you, ma'am. Honorable Dlamini, your motion is exactly the same motion as the one read out by the Honorable Julius. It is a motion of condolence. I think we should just agree that the House will send the same condolence motion to the bereaved families. The Honorable Manopole.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of African National Congress, I hereby move without notice that the Council knows with excitement that a 27-year-old Gift Nkwaepe became the first ever African-born player to enter Major League Basketball, noting a hit at the first at-bat in his career, helping his team, the Pittsburgh Pirates, beat the Chicago Cubs. It is worth noting that even though they may not be able to say his name correctly, but he has not stopped sports commentators from singing Nkwaepe praises. Also knows that the dream came true for him because of he has been a dreaming since he has been 10-year-old boy, and that he also means so much to the people of South Africa than basketball in Africa. The nation is proud to see a rising star in Nkgoepe Calibra's break, Barrios becoming the first African-born player in Major League Basketball game. He has done our nation proud. Therefore, encourage other aspiration sports players to use Nkgoepe achievement as an inspiration for them to reach the highest level of their success. I so move.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there any objection to this motion? The motion has been agreed to in terms of Section 65. Is there any other member? The Honorable Mpambo Shibukwana. The Honorable Mpambo Shibukwana, the Honorable Motlashupin, the Honorable Cimbi, the Honorable Terablanche, the Honorable Labuskafa.
Thank you, Chairperson. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move without notice that the Council notes, firstly, the destruction caused by the fire in Imzamoyetu Hout Bay and the City of Cape Town's efforts to restore the dignity of the affected citizens of the Western Cape. Further, we thank the residents and the NGOs who came to help out for their cooperation and the Department of Social Development for their assistance during the trying times. I so move.
Is there any objection to this motion? None. The motion has been agreed to in terms of Section 65. Honorable Motlashupin.
Thanks, Honorable Chairperson. I hereby move without notice on behalf of the African National Congress that Council notes with sadness the death of a 12-year-old boy in Kolini after allegedly being assaulted by two farmers. Also notes that the alleged murder of the boy was the reason for violent protest in the area when residents went on a rampage, burning and looting businesses. Further notes that the family of the murdered boy identified his body over the weekend, making it possible to start with funeral arrangements. Therefore, sends our deepest condolences to the family of the young boy and hope that the police will do everything possible to bringing the perpetrators to book. I so move.
Thank you, sir. Is there any objection to this motion? None. Has been agreed to in terms of Section 65. The Honorable Cimbi.
Thank you, Chairperson. I hereby move without notice on behalf of the African National Congress that Council notes with sadness the passing away of the first Deputy Provincial Secretary of the South African Communist Party in the Western Cape, Comrade Tumisang Bojabutseha. Also notes that Comrade Tumisang was serving as a political advisor to the Chief Whip of the ANC and also served as an organizer and a senior researcher of the ANC caucus in Parliament. Further notes that Comrade Tumisang passed away at Belleville Melumet Hospital on Sunday, 30th April, after a short illness. Therefore, convey our heartfelt condolences to the family and friends of Comrade Tumisang in these difficult times. I so move. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there any objection to this motion? Motion has been agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. The Honorable Terablanche.
Thank you, Chairperson. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move without notice that the Council note the spontaneous formation of the freedom movement by concerned South Africans from all walks of life. The mass rally on Thursday, 27 April 2017 in Pretoria against President Jacob Zuma and further state capture attempts, and that this House debates the contributions made by demonstrations of this nature to strengthen our democracy. I so move.
Thank you, sir. Is there any objection to this motion? Motion has been objected to, therefore it becomes a motion, a notice of a motion. The Honorable Labuskafa.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move without notice that the Council notes Swellendam Municipality has been recognized as South Africa's top eco-friendly destination. The luxury travel guide publications selected Swellendam as the eco-friendly destination of the year, South Africa in the Africa and Middle East Awards 2017 category. Further, Mossel Bay Municipality has been named the greenest local municipality in the country. The Council commends Mossel Bay Municipality's decision to use the 3.5 million rand prize money to fund more greening projects and congratulates these municipalities on their achievements. I so move.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there any objection to this motion? None. The motion has been agreed to in terms of Section 65. Honorable members, is there any other member who wishes to make a motion without notice? None. Thank you very much. We proceed to the subject for discussion as printed in our order paper. And I have the privilege to call to the podium for the first take on this subject, the Honorable Khai.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Deputy Minister of Labour, Dilizinda, Honorable Chief Whip, Honorable Members, Special Delegates, officials from the Department of Labour, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I would like to take this opportunity to first thank the leadership of the institution for selecting me to be one of the speakers on this debate on Workers' Day and workers' rights. I've been specifically allocated an area of focus, which is the creation of retention of decent work and sustainable livelihood as a strategic response to the major challenges facing our society. That is high unemployment, poverty, deepening inequality, and rural marginalization. Because this is also about the Workers' Day, let me just give a brief historical underpinnings of the May Day. 2017 marks the 122 years since the first celebration of May Day in 1895, which took place in South Africa. It signifies for the first time a link between workers globally as part of a proletarian solidarity. It has been preceded by a long period of strife between labor and capital and the development of the ideas of proletarian internationalism within the international workers' movement. The ideologues of this organization espouse the ideas of international unity and solidarity, a belief in fraternity of all nations, proletarian class awareness and resolution to unite in the struggle against social and economic oppression, soon made them realize that appeal was rather better expressed in working masses to unite. The idea of proletarian solidarity first declared and substantiated late in 1845 when Engels wrote in the Festival of Nations in London that the proletarians in all countries have one and same interest, one and same enemy, and one and same struggle. The great mass of proletarians are, by their very nature, free from national prejudices. Only the awakening proletariat can bring about fraternalism between different nations. The creation of the International Working Men's Association, which was to become known as the First International, on September 1864 in St. Martin's Hall, London, was a fundamental landmark in the development of proletarian international solidarity. Under the banner, "Workers of the world, unite. You have nothing to lose but your chains and the world to win." It was from the First International that the coordination of strike across country borders developed and mushroomed from the first internationally coordinated strike of 1866, covering England, Germany, France, and Belgium.
The International Workers Association organized strike funds for workers globally, initiated by Karl Marx in 1869 in response to brutal repression on workers that were on strike. The 1860s and 1870s were characterized by a sharp rise in workers' strikes and solidarity campaigns conducted every month. The Paris Commune of 1871 played a decisive role in the evolution of proletarian solidarity, with the first international collecting for the money for the Commune. Frightened by the Paris Commune, as well as influence of the First International, the majority of European governments outlawed the International Working Men's Association. In 1880s, class consciousness of the working people in developed capitalist countries have reached a developed level as a result of greater internationalism of the working class movement. Facing a common situation, working people began to put forward similar and common demands. The common demands were for an end to exploitation of the working class and granting of socio-economic rights to the working class. An 8-hour working day became foremost among these demands and was held up as a slogan of the international working class movement in the 1880s. A new international proletarian union, the Second International, came into being, and at this stage an international day of holiday of proletarian solidarity was promoted as a result of widespread acceptance of the ideas of proletarian internationalism and a higher stage of development in the consciousness of the working people and their class. The Chicago events of the 3rd and 4th May 1886, when American workers organized by the International Workers of the World held rallies, marched in support of an 8-hour working day, resulted in all 8 leaders being arrested, put on trial, and 7 of the 8 being hanged in 1887. This was a culmination of what had proceeded over decades and played a major role in establishing the 1st of May, the May Day as workers' holiday globally in 1890. It is against this backdrop that the first May Day event in South Africa took place in 1895. Massive May Day rallies took place in the 1920s to the 1960s. These were led through bitter struggles under the leadership of Industrial Commercial Workers Union, the Council of Non-European Trade Unions, the first non-racial trade union federation, the South African Congress of Trade Unions, and Kgosana over the decades. Following mass May Day events in 1986, under pressure, the apartheid regime was in 1987 forced to declare May Day as a paid public holiday. 91 years of struggle had resulted in a day in which workers could relax and celebrate their achievement with their families. May Day has continued to be celebrated since then. In the transitional executive period, discussions were concluded on official days that will be recognized in a new democracy. May Day was one of these, and after the April 1994 elections, the ANC government announced Workers' Day as a paid public holiday. In line with other countries whose mode of production is capitalist, the term Workers' Day has been adopted whilst the trade union movement stick to the origin of this day in calling it more correctly May Day. May Day remains an opportunity to consider how far we have come in emancipating South African workers from economic exploitation and ensuring a better life for workers and our people as a whole. Together, the ANC and Kgosana and other progressive trade union formations ensure that the rights of workers are protected in our Constitution and in many progressive laws. Chief among these is the right of workers to form and belong to trade unions, which is enshrined in the Constitution. The Constitution also states that everyone has a right to fair labor practices and that every worker has a right to strike. The ANC government has also enacted legislation to further protect advanced workers' rights thanks to the struggle of workers over the years. These laws include the Labor Relations Act, the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, the Employment Equity Act, the Skills Development Act, the Unemployment Insurance Act, the Occupational and Safety Act, as well as the Compensation for Occupational Injuries and Diseases Act. These laws have been designed to protect the rights of workers, guide wage determination, and general working conditions of South African workers. The laws protect children from being abused as child labor, protect the right of women to go on maternity leave and not to lose their jobs. It provides the right of workers to be trained and provided with necessary skills. Most importantly, the country's labor legislation now protects the rights of vulnerable workers, such as farm workers, domestic workers, and workers in hospitality sector, such as hotels and similar establishments. These are all rights that were gained through the hard work of workers in this country over a number of decades. In 2016 State of the Nation address, further amendments to the labor legislation, a new labor regime aimed to further improving the rights of and protection of workers was announced. In the transitional period immediately prior to the first democratic election, the ANC, in its major policy guide of 1992, Ready to Govern, laid out a future democratic labor relations regime for workers. The 2007 52nd ANC National Conference in Polokwane emphasized economic transformation and creation of decent work opportunities. The primary focus of economic policies. The conference also resolved that transformation of the structures of production and ownership of the economy for inclusive growth. This focus included the expansion of an expanded public works program and the linkage of industrial strategy with key youth development program in the form of an integrated youth development strategy. 7 years of implementation and evaluation of practice in implementing the creation and retention of decent work in public sector and of trying to ensure that the private sector adheres to this principle of promoting equality and decent work at workplace shaped the conduct of 2014 ANC National Election Manifesto. The manifesto, in assessing the previous 5 years and determining what needed to be done, articulates that an investigation into the modalities for the introduction of a national minimum wage as one of the key mechanisms to reduce income inequality be undertaken immediately. The strengthening of the enforcement of provision of the Employment Equity Act that requires that all employers report on disproportionate income differential at all wage levels and submit plans to their progressive reduction be undertaken. Steps to ensure that collective bargaining takes place in all sectors of the economy and that bargaining council be used as vehicles to promote greater equity in the economy, linking access to state incentives and procurement to adherence to living wage standards and commitments to promoting wage equity in collective agreement. Steps to strengthen existing laws to ensure faster change in employment equity in all workplaces be undertaken by enforcing an accelerated implementation of employment equity targets. Greater protection for workers and employers in the informal sectors. Enforcement and measures to eliminate abusive work practices, atypical work, and labor broking. The intervention that needed to deal with the challenges of creating decent work and sustainable livelihood were the following: that you should raise levels of fixed investment in the economy by increasing private fixed investment in productive sectors of the economy and also in prescribed assets. That banks should reallocate capital to productive investment as well as to small, medium enterprises sectors. The use of state land and capital is pivotal herein. In building inclusive growth and thereby reducing inequality by ensuring that growth must be accompanied by transformation. And linking risk distribution with production is key. On investment and infrastructure, since 2008, investment in public infrastructure has helped us to avoid recession. The construction industry is the biggest driver of new job growth. In addition, the infrastructure build program develops a value chain which brings in private investment into economy and often result in joint financing. On transforming the countryside, we have made commitment to speed up the return of the land to our people, and land is a key priority. The support program and access to markets is critical. The introduction of the agri-parks will play an important role in this regard. And the better use of expropriation measures in the Constitution and the new expropriation bill, once passed, will assist greatly. With regard to reversing the industrialization, the key features of the reindustrialization include the improved linkages between the primary and secondary productive sectors, a drive to remove constraints to manufacturing-led value-adding growth with special emphasis on labor-intensive sectors such as agro-processing, clothing, and textile.
Honorable Khai, your time has expired.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Mgwebu.
Honorable Chairperson, members and fellow South Africans, Brian Sandoval, an American politician, attorney and current 29th governor of Nevada, once said, I quote, "Unemployment, foreclosures, bankruptcy, the chore is not more government spending, but helping business create jobs." This afternoon, as this House is in session, the intent is to celebrate the workers' rights. But I want to remind the House that rights can only be celebrated when they are realized. So it means people must be employed for them to ensure those rights. Sadly, Chairperson, honorable members, the problem that we have in South Africa today is that we are unable to celebrate those workers' rights. And I will tell you what is the problem. We are living in a country where 8.9 million fellow South Africans want to work, but they have no jobs. We are living in a country where few jobs that are there are either threatened or are lost. South Africa is one of the countries in the world with the highest unemployment rate. Instead of losing jobs, we should be creating more jobs. Instead of threatening jobs, we should be bringing stability to our economy so that we can have more investors, so that our people can have jobs. What is wrong? Why are we unable to create jobs? Why are we losing even the jobs that we have created? Well, I will tell you why. The ANC-led government is failing to govern. Under the ANC government, the poultry industry is in a crisis. European countries mainly have been allegedly allowed to dump their chicken in South Africa. This is a surplus chicken way below the cost of production. While consumers benefit from this cheap chicken price, poultry imports are causing job losses. This is the industry that supports nearly 50,000 direct jobs and 130,000 indirect jobs. In February this year, Rainbow Chicken retrenched 1,350 workers, including managers. As if this is not enough, Country Bed will close down its Mahikeng abattoir, resulting in 939 direct and 1,605 indirect jobs, unless the government intervenes. The South African poultry industry has the potential of creating a whopping 26,725 direct and indirect jobs if South Africa's production can be competitively enhanced and marketed with protection from dumping. The survival of our poultry industry food security, livelihood of rural economy, and the future of 130 workers and their families is largely in the hands of the ANC government that has failed so far to intervene, as the crisis has been there for almost 4 years for everyone to see. The only government response so far has been to set up a committee to look into the matter. I repeat, to look into the matter, which has only commenced only this year. What is there to celebrate when our people are losing jobs? What rights do they have when they are not employed? Again, our citrus industry in the Sandys River Valley in the Eastern Cape is in the midst of a disaster due to an unknown phenomenon with up to 40% of oranges dropping off the trees at the farms. Besides the huge financial implications, it is a massive blow for those who rely on seasonal jobs, with the number of jobs down by a third already. Early indications point to a drought as a leading cause. The ANC government was asked by various stakeholders, including the Democratic Alliance, to declare drought a national disaster, but they refused. Look at the pain and the suffering they're causing today. Farmers could now lose up to 40% of their yield for the year, slashing the industry's annual gross domestic product contribution of 1.5 billion by the same percentage. This is a serious disaster, to say the least, considering that the citrus industry is the second biggest industry in the Eastern Cape behind the motor industry. Honorable Chairperson, again I ask, what is there to celebrate when the citrus industry we have in our country is facing a looming disaster? Recently, our beloved country has been reduced to a junk status by various credit rating agencies, thanks to the ANC government. The ANC caused this crisis. They fired performing ministers and kept corrupt and incompetent ministers. Honorable Chairperson, according to Feng Shui, the Chinese proverb, I quote, "Birds don't fly, they ride the wind. Fish don't swim, they are carried by the water." Close quote. Our children are neither birds of the air nor fish of the sea. They need to be adequately prepared for the world of work. Yet the ANC government is failing all those children as they are offered poor basic education that does not prepare them for the world of work. How do we then celebrate the workers' rights given all this pain and suffering caused by the government of the ANC? Honorable Chairperson, members and fellow South Africans, it is clear that the ANC cannot govern. The ANC that once championed the cause of the poor, the marginalized and the downtrodden is no more. Honorable Chairperson, fellow South Africans, how do we fix this mess? Well, there is a solution. The DA is the solution. We have a proven track record of good governance and job creation. In the Western Cape, we have the lowest unemployment rate. We will support a growing manufacturing sector. We will make sure that South Africa is brought out of the junk status as quick as we can. ANC, inkomo ebhongilele ngecala, inkomo lelisengwa. The DA is ready to govern come 2019. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Order. Order. The Honorable Dlamini.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, Deputy
Order.
Minister, honorable members, my greetings. Honorable Magwebu, bengicabanga ukuthi utokhuluma ngehistory ye-DA nabasebenzi, but you did not do that. Instead, you are talking about the ANC, and you are misrepresenting the history of the ANC and the workers. And you are not talking about a history at DA nabasebenzi, because today we are talking about workers' rights. Because of your contribution and involvement in the workers' exploitation during apartheid.
Honorable Dlamini, please take your seat. Honorable Hatton. Honorable Dlamini, take your seat. Honorable Hatton. You are on your feet.
Honourable Chair, the honourable member addresses a member directly. She should address the chair, please. It goes on and on.
Thank you, sir. Honorable Dlamini, address the member through the chair.
Magwebu, form. As we all know,
Honorable Dlamini, address the member through the chair.
no, Chair, ngikhuluma ngeform Magwebu.
Angizwa. No, order, members. If I
Chairperson-
do not understand what the speaker on the podium says, I cannot rule.
Chair, ngikhuluma ukuthi ngine form namagwebu la.
Oh, okay. Please continue.
We, the African National Congress, stand humbled by the contribution made by the workers of our beautiful country, South Africa. The country is what it is today because of the contribution of the workers. As we all know that the first day of May is Workers' Day, whereby as South Africans, we pledged our solidarity with workers in our country. It is also a day on which we reflect on our struggles as well as celebrating power of the working class in the country that we love so much. That is what the Honorable Magwebu Chair was supposed to talk about, their struggle as the DA with the workers. You have made South Africa a country of choice. I'm referring to the workers' preferred destination, a country to live in. By all means, we owe it to you. Our economic growth, not only South Africa, some countries today are claiming to be first world because of the contribution of the workers in South Africa and the world in general. Chairperson in the House, during the apartheid era, where DA was part as Democratic Party, together with the National Party, basebendi bebenganakwa bekungadiwa ukuthi kunetidzingo labanalo akekho bekabacabangela ukuthi bafuna amanti bafuna gesi bafuna tindlu bantwana babesebendi nabo bebengama workers. Nobody bothered to protect children of workers as child labor. Nobody cared that workers' children need education. In terms of pay, they will decide whether to pay them or not, or underpay them. When to pay them, if they decide to pay them, workers did not have a say. They never thought about women who has to give birth to the children. Some women will work until the last day. I indicated, Chair, that my own sister, my mother went in the morning to the farm, came back with a child, meaning that bo mama besebenda aze abelekele M17. Child labor was the order of the day. We want to thank the ANC, firstly because of the history of the ANC with the workers, involvement of the ANC in the struggle. We did not decide about this law now because we're in government. We are coming way back with the workers. When ANC took over government, we came up with progressive labor laws and social policies that saw workers as human beings, not machinery. People who have needs, who wants to have easy access to water, sanitation, housing, electricity, social grant, good roads facilities, education policies, maternity leave for women. The impact of those policies that the ANC came up with. Firstly, as a woman, when you come back from work, you don't have to go and look for water somewhere. You just get water from the tap. You don't have to go around looking for firewood. There is electricity. There is sanitation. We acknowledge that there are still those who need those facilities. But the policies that the ANC has come up with is to ensure that all workers has access. These policies are made for workers because benefit because they had everything on their exposure. It is only the workers, Magwebo. The African National Congress has a long history with worker struggle through the unions. We recognize the role played by unions who stood up for workers when it was not fashion to be in unions at the time. Unlike now, but unions stood up for workers and keep on, we are saying as the
Honorable
ANC.
Dlamini, please take your seat. Honorable Dlamini, please take your seat. Honorable member,
The member must just take the seat, Chair, then I can go on.
Honorable Dlamini, take your seat. I want to address this member. Moren.
Thank you, Chairperson. I would like to know if the honourable member would take a question, please.
Honorable Dlamini, do you wish to take a question?
Ngisadila ngama issues abasebenzi.
Please take a seat again, Honorable Member. I want to address you, sir. Honorable members, you do stand up on a point of order or on point of privilege. Accord the person who is presiding to give the instructions. If you do take the liberty to give the instructions yourself, directly to the person on the podium, might come across as rude. So please desist. Please take your seat. Honorable Dlamini, she said she did not want to take the question. Honorable Dlamini, continue.
Honorable Chair, the tensions that all of them are shouting about in the Kgosana, we were expecting that as the ANC. Because the ANC now is in government. For ANC in government, it does not mean that we have to ignore rights of the workers. Unions are representing workers. We are in government. So there will be tensions. And those are healthy tensions because we want to ensure that even though we are in government, but workers' rights are still observed. So you must understand those tensions are healthy tensions. The president is the president of government, so you must know that. We are not surprised, Honorable Chair, to see that there are people overall gumboots is fashion. We're not surprised because they don't know our issues, our workers. All what they see workers wearing those protective clothes, I must inform them anyway, Uguchi. Even now my boots and my overall, alwela ngama unions, which ANC was part of that. They were not there before. They only wear those things when they are here in Parliament. When they go out, they wear their expensive clothes and they claim to be representing our workers. It is an insult to workers. They must cease. It shows the shallow-minded and knowledge of workers' issues. They are far deeper than that.
Honorable Dlamini, take your seat. Honorable Dlamini, are you prepared to take a question?
Chair, ngidila ngama issues abasebenzi.
Honorable member, she is not prepared. Please continue.
I want to say, Chairperson, I just want to tell them that those two, okay, I want to talk about those who are supporting Ongqawankulu and Bahlala Lai Parliament and claim to be concerned about our workers' rights. After babone ukuthi ke, e-government has come up with laws that protects our workers. Base ke, balanda abantu bangaphandle for cheap labor on the expense of our people, creating a tension amongst workers that on the scarce resources, which is work. Honorable Magwebo, bekakhuluma manje ngokuthi i-ANC, government, ANC, during the ANC government, there is highest unemployment rate. It's because nivumela labongqawankulu enibasupportayo ukuthi balande abantu abatoba exploiter. I do want to say, Chair, that those African people that they import to the country, them too are workers. They are human beings. They have rights. They need to be protected. We are saying a changing environment of work should accommodate women. Women must not be left out. As the ANC, we are saying that. Since 1994, we have focused on legislative reforms that removed all forms of institutional discriminatory laws in the quest for a free, non-racial, non-sexist, peaceful, and democratic South Africa. As a result, we have made great progress in the empowerment of women. To date, the number of women participating, including politics, workplace, has increased. But I must say, Chairperson, that in the private sector, the senior management still reflect that the apartheid regime. Sithi ke hambani nitshele labangani benu bongqowankulu ukuthi abayilungise leyo nto leyo. We need to see women in the senior position in the private sector. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, ma'am. The Honorable Shabangu.
Chairperson, let me start first by reminding the latter speaker that history is the study of the past to analyze the future and to interpret the present. On behalf of all disfranchised workers in the country, and on behalf of all South Africans who are sick to the core of Jacob Zuma, members of COSATU on May Day showed Mr. Zuma and his band of corrupt leeches like Ace Magashule that they were not welcome as our leaders anymore. By chasing Zuma away, the workers were sending a clear message to the ANC and Mr. Zuma that they continue ignoring the voice of our people at their own peril. At stake here is a country at risk of being undermined and looted by a foreign Indian family
Honorable Chabangu.
and unscrupulous
Honorable
Zuma
Chabangu.
family.
Please take your seat. There is a point of order, ma'am.
Point of order ya ka ko hore na honorable member o hlaisa allegation ya hore nani President Jacob Zuma le Comrade Ace Magashule ba corrupt. Hore na ke mola wa parliament hore a tjho jwalo na.
Thank you, ma'am. Honorable Chabangu.
Can I proceed, madams?
Honorable Shabangu, the point of order is that you are making an allegation about the president and Ndate Ace Magashule as corrupt. Can you say anything about it? Did you, in fact, make that allegation in your speech?
Yes.
Do you also recognize that if you make such an allegation, you must actually put a substantial motive?
It is not an allegation. The president is corrupt. He has cases that are pending, 100 and something cases.
Honorable Chabangu, there is an allegation. That allegation still has to be tested in court. Until then, can you provide us with a substantive motion that says, indeed, I can prove corruption here? I'm simply saying that in trying to push what you read and what you say is an allegation without grounds that are weighty in this House, you are impugning on a member who does come into this House.
I beg to withdraw and proceed.
Thank you, sir. Please proceed.
At stake here is a country at risk of being undermined and looted by a foreign Indian family and unscrupulous family. They loot our resources while workers in this country languish in the misery of slave wages, slave-like working conditions, and rising unemployment. This is all a product of the ANC inability to transform our country in any significant way. 23 years after attainment of political freedom, the vestige of colonial and apartheid economic architecture are still deeply embedded in our society. Protection.
You are protected. You are protected, sir. Proceed.
I'll come and explain. I'm a teacher. 23 years after the attainment of political freedom, whites still earn 6 times more than blacks in this country. 23 years after the attainment of political freedom, more than 60% of working people earn less than 3,500 per month. And 23 years after the attainment of freedom, about 40% of our country and women are unemployed. 23 years after the attainment of political freedom, about 17 million South Africans depend solely on social grants for their livelihoods. Today, 2 white men own more wealth than the bottom 50% of the population. It is for this reason that we commend those workers who defied the factional leading of Kgosana and chased the Zuma away from Workers' Day celebration. Workers have been given the short end of the stick for far too long in this country. It is the workers who are the product of the wealth. It is the workers who toil for hours in the mines of this country in return for a pittance that is not even enough to buy food for their families, let alone send their children to school. The wealth produced by workers is not for the benefit of their workers, but is benefiting big companies' bosses who happen to be white. It is for this reason that we as EFF would want to rearrange and redefine the nature of our society. This redefinition must be first and foremost be premised on the understanding that workers are producers of the wealth in this country. Secondly, the wealth producers must be for the material and spiritual satisfaction of the majority of our people. Thirdly, our society and social activity in education, in culture, in the legal profession, in the military, the police, and all sectors of society must be ordered to conform to these ideas. Our most immediate goals, however, are the following. We demand equal pay for equal work as a matter of agency. We demand an immediate abolition of labor brokers. We demand a fair living wage for mine workers, for petrol attendants, for taxi drivers, for domestic workers, for security guards, for farm workers, and for all disenfranchised sectors of the working class. All this will not happen without dismantling the colonial structure of the South African economy. We need the land, we need the mines, and strategic sectors of the economy back in the hands of the people. We need a corrupt-free government that is able to put the needs of the people over the needs of the corrupt leaders. We need a united working class voice in order to win these struggles. What Zuma has successfully managed to do was to divide the working class. The largest voice of the working class we have in this country now is the economic freedom fighters. We will fight for the growing consciousness amongst the working class for them to realize that there is no ANC to go back to. The ANC is deaf to the needs of the working class. The
Honorable
EFF is
Shabangu.
the only hope of the working class. Thank you.
Ke a leboga, Morena. The Honorable Kaula. Order, members.
Honorable Chairperson, Ndabezitha Nkosi yesizwe, Honorable Deputy Minister. The Constitution of the Republic of South Africa in the Bill of Rights gives expression to workers' rights in respect of fair labor practices. The key question for consideration is whether after 23 years of democracy, workers in South Africa do feel the fruits of liberation at their workplaces, economically, and in the rest of the country's atmosphere and environment. Whether skilled personnel and professionals do get employable, and whether unskilled personnel are catered for conveniently and get upgraded. Whether the atmosphere in the country is conducive to the promotion and production of a quality workforce in the country. Quite correctly, over the past 23 years, South Africa has produced some very progressive pieces of legislation aimed at protecting and promoting workers' rights. I note that the IFP has been part of these processes through active involvement in Parliament. However, when it comes to considering whether what gets passed in Parliament does in fact get implemented is another issue. South Africa is indeed poor with proper and effective implementation of legislation. When one looks at the challenges faced by workers in South Africa, the challenges remaining unresolved seem to be engulfing the labor sector more than the achievements of the past 23 years. Exacerbating the intensity of the challenges is that the leadership of our country is seen to be removed from the plight of the workers, except when it is electioneering times. As could be realized with the May Day experiences yesterday, workers have begun to say enough is enough with being used as electioneering machines and then get forgotten for the rest of the season. Workers in South Africa suffer more due to the slow growth of the country's economy. The slow growth of the economy results in job losses when investors pull out of our country to invest elsewhere in the world. This is coupled with the mediocre leadership which is provided by our government. Some of the reasons cited for our slow economic growth include domestic flip-flops, poor leadership, lack of vision, corruption hampering growth potential, lack of investment in research infrastructure and tertiary education, large amounts of wastage, policy experimentation, and cronyism, to mention but a few. With mediocrity of performance in leadership removed, these are issues that can be successfully tackled and resolved. South Africa needs to cut down on the size and function of government, which eats on the meager resources of the country. South Africa needs to arrest the activities of state capture, which jeopardize the country's efforts towards economic growth. Indeed, the structural patterns of our country's economy are skewed. These result in the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. As a result of this, the inequality gap of our country rates amongst the highest in the world. This is very ironical because South Africa is blessed with an abundance of mineral resources. The tragedy is that these do not benefit the entire populace of our country, but only those few who are connected to state capturers. Therefore, structural changes leading to the transformation of our economy are imperative. But in the words of our former finance minister, there can be no transformation without economic growth, and there can be no economic growth without transformation. These two complement each other. The danger is when transformation is used as a scapegoat to looting state resources. The unemployment rate in South Africa remains unacceptably high, especially the unemployment of the youth. There is a need for the country's labor market to continually adapt to changing workforce and digital age in order to keep up with the new developments and industrialization of the fourth order. In addition to this, the educational system must also play a role. In conclusion, Chairperson, for our country to truly celebrate our workers' rights, we need to free South Africa from the bondages of ignorance, from the bondages of capture, and from the bondages of despotism. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Ntebe.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, the DM, the Chairperson of the Select Committee, and honorable members, special delegates. Chair, it's very clear that some of the members who are debating today did not get the script. That today it's a celebration of the toiling masses. It's a celebration, and we join the masses of our people in celebrating the peasantry, the toilers of the soil, so that we are able to say to anybody who wants to come and contest, there's no country today in the world can compete with South Africa in terms of the labor protection laws that we have. No country today in the world can compete with South Africa in terms of the implementation of what our NDR called us to do, regularizing and balancing the class, gender, and race issues that we want to do. Yes, of course, with conflict arising from some of our honorable members sitting here today, and we know what they represent. Honorable Chair, economic patterns of the present must transform in order for us to realize the future the future we long for. This in the main includes skewed patterns of ownership and accumulation. And this is something that some of our members that are sitting here today will always miss. This also includes the dismantling monopoly domination of our economy so that workers can begin to tap into the possibilities that are there for them. Special legacies of our past still relegate our workers in particular to the periphery of the areas from their workplace. And this is clearer when you come to some of the provinces that we don't lead. That workers are still traveling and they spend a lot of their money traveling from and to their workplaces. And we know these things. Unemployment, poverty, and inequality remains our central pressing challenge. And a developmental state must be able to shape and direct the economy for the broader benefit of all. We want to agree with the chairperson of the Select Committee when he says, labor brokerage is the exploitation of our lifetime, and this must be dealt with. Honorable Chair, just a few things. We want to agree that Honorable Magob, and this did not happen and will not happen, that he was not properly briefed. That he is saying to us that we must appreciate that the duty of the government today is to assist business to create jobs. That we know. But why are you silent on workers? Why are you silent on workers? Yes, we will assist business to create jobs, and what about the workers? Yes, we agree that investment is needed in the country, but why are you absent on transformation? Yes, we know that there's a problem in poultry sector, but you should have been briefed that international and bilateral agreements has a specific clause in them that protects all countries that are beneficiaries and parties to international agreements. And one of them includes that when a party to an agreement makes an allegation that a poultry sector is suffering because there's dumping, there needs to be an investigation done by all parties that is internationally recognized, agreed to all parties, not waffling about what needs to be done. He's saying that this is not a time to celebrate. Yes, we agree. But he's silent about the input costs that are causing the poultry sector to also downgrade, about mechanization that is needed in the poultry sector for us to be able to be competitive, so that we can have competitive edge to those who are competing with us. And then we have the party of the fake grades. Equal pay for equal work. Yet they are silent on the arbitration order coming from the CCMA about your own employees that you fired and you could not pay. A simple CCMA order that says you fired workers wrongly, reinstate them or reimburse them.
Honorable Ntebe, I've got a point of order. Please take your seat. Honorable Matebule. Order members. Honorable Matebule, I didn't hear you. Please repeat your...
Member at the podium, can you be able to take a question?
Honorable Ntebe, will you take a question?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, ma'am. Fire ahead.
Chair, I also speak Shangaan. The question is, do I work for EFF? No, I don't. But I can tell.
No, Ndadentebe, just a bit. Have you exhausted your question?
I still want to ask you.
Order, members. Order. Honorable Matebula, I'm going to enable you to put a question which the Honorable Ntebe will respond to. When you finish with your question, please take your seat. Okay. Your question, please. Is that the end of your question? Please take your seat. Ndate Ntebe?
Chair, I know this information because it's public knowledge. You can go into the website now, you'll find the arbitration order from the CCMA. But I'm telling you now, let's teach you politics. You're telling us that workers must not get engaged into politics. I can put it straight to the EFF caucus. That critical areas of participation includes, amongst the others, political involvement in all areas. So you can't be a worker at work and be just an ordinary somebody when you reach your location, yet there are no services to the people, yet politics affects you. Because it's a political decision, even how much of a salt content you have in your food. You know that? Simple politics. Honorable Chair, we are told by Honorable Kaula that enough is enough. We don't know what is enough. And we need to get an appreciation of what is enough, because we understand a simple logic that an employer and employee relationship is riddled with contradictions. Simple. Where you find an employer and you find an employee.
Honorable Matebula, please don't drown the speaker. Ntate, please continue. You can heckle, but don't drown the speaker. Please continue. Ntate.
As I was saying, Chair, it's not our intention from the ANC, from the broader alliance, to outsource the independence of each of alliance partners. We remain independent, we remain committed to our own constituencies, and workers in their own right, they know that they've got nothing to lose but their chains. They will fight for their own space, they will dominate their own space, they will fight for what they deserve in this country, and we give them that right to do so. We will not come here and say an employer-employee relationship is not riddled with contradictions, when we know that it's a struggle between what is new and struggling to be born and what is old and dying. And that will be seen as we move forward. From our part, we want to say to the workers of this country, nobody should occupy your space. Nobody should occupy your space.
Honorable Ntebe, there is another member. Honorable Baba.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm so glad the member is in the mood for taking questions. I would love him to also take a question.
Honorable Ntebe, are you taking a question? Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. Chairperson, as we hear, Honorable Ntebe is very serious about jobs. But don't you think that the president's staying in as president and then eventually downgrading our country with his friends, the Guptas, etc., has a detrimental effect on the workers of this country?
Honorable Ntebe, you are at liberty to answer or not to answer. The honorable member is asking you to speculate.
Yeah. No, Chair. I understand. I will not speculate, but I will teach you that it is not Jacob Zuma's responsibility to create jobs. It's not. At least acclimatize yourself with the responsibility of the president.
Honorable Ntebe, please take your seat. Honorable Faba, you had your question. Honorable Labaskachni, why are you on your feet?
Honorable Chair, on a point of order, I would like to know...
It's a point of order, ma'am. Please proceed.
I would like to know if the honourable member will take a question.
Honorable Ntebe, will you take another question?
Chair, can I be on record that this is the last one?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. I would like to ask the member if that is not the President's job to create jobs. Why did he announce in his State of the Nation that the ANC will create 9 million jobs?
Honourable Ntebe.
It's simple. As the head of state and the leader of government in charge, you pronounce the statement of intent, and you go out and you go out and lobby investment, so that investment in the country, with the creation of labor relations laws that you have, and all the laws that you have in the country for conducive environment, investment environment, you can create jobs.
Order. This member is protected. Continue, Mren.
Honorable Chair, it's not amazing for us, and that's why I'm taking all these questions. It's not amazing. We know what this member stands for. We know that you stand for domination of monopoly over our economy, that you stand for those who are making profit, and in this country today, workers build and assemble cars they can't afford to drive. Workers in this country, they build houses in estates they can't afford to live in, let alone rent. Workers in this very country, they go to work and come back and they don't even know what they are going to eat. And you know what you do? In celebration of the workers' rights, you come here and talk about business as opposed to workers. We know what you represent. And that's why we will forever say to the workers, don't sit on your laurels. Take charge. Move forward, march on, because the fight is bigger than this. And we know that workers' struggle, workers' rights are human rights. And that's why as the ANC will continue to make sure that workers' rights are defended, and we will amend accordingly the policies to make sure that workers in this country continue to enjoy the protection. Here in Western Cape, you still have the farm community that is exploited terribly. And you said nothing about them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, sir. Order. Order. The MEC for Public Works of KwaZulu-Natal, the Honorable Pillay.
Thank you, Chairperson, the Deputy Minister, honorable delegates. Let me first convey warm greetings from our Premier, Mr. Willis Mkhunu, who wanted to be here, and I'm here on his behalf. Of course, he has a history in unionism. Willis Mkhunu cut his teeth for over 2.5 decades in the National Union of Mine Workers in KwaZulu-Natal as a whole. So he's rooted in the struggle for workers' rights. He will not theorize about it. He understands the struggle, the sweat, and even the blood that was shed in building a culture of human rights and workers' rights in particular. So I convey his good wishes. Thank you for the previous speaker for bringing me back to the script, as he put it, which was celebrating workers' rights over 20 years. And it has been a tremendous achievement. I mean, if we can't pay tribute to those who struggled as they did and achieved what we have over those 20 years, then that is a terrible disservice. That doesn't mean you've got no space for criticism. By all means, a democratic state is about debate and discussion and criticism. But give credit where credit is due. I think it's a bit churlish to do otherwise. I must, being a political representative myself, I can't help saying, having listened to what has been said, that of course there are those who really, his entire history is one of a history of being in bed with the bosses. There are those whose entire history who were born and fed and bred and, by the likes of Anglo-American. That's where their roots are, and that culture, it's in their DNA to be defensive of the boss's interests. But what surprises me even further is the lack of depth in some of the arguments. I think the previous speaker tried to unpack it a bit. But you see, when you talk about rainbow chicken has a very, very large presence in KwaZulu-Natal. We know personally the workers who are being retrenched. We've had delegations to go and meet with them and engage with the unions. We've met with Kgosana, who has intervened. In eThekwini municipality too, the credit is actually looking at possibility of buying off a couple of those farms to see if those workers' rights can be, workers' lives can be re-established to some form of dignity and security. That is the effort, practical action. But more importantly, the depth of the argument. Because we've gone into this quite seriously. And there's two levels. Initially, we thought, oh, this is part of AGOA, the AGOA agreement, and the Americans wanting to force it. But actually, it's not. But even there, what is the argument? Because it's a trade-off. And there's a Zulu term, which I forget now, but it's tit for tat in the world trade. And that is that we've got a strong automobile industry, as indeed many provinces have. Toyota, for example, is there in a very big way. And there's one brand of Mercedes-Benz that we export directly to the United States without any tax, 0 tax levels. Now, do we say, okay, we want to insist on you not putting in your chicken here, and we're going to increase our tariffs to a very high level and tempt their retaliation that they tax the imports of that brand of Toyota, to the risk of those thousands of very highly skilled jobs. So it's a nuanced battle that we have to engage in and weigh what is in the best interest of the country as a whole and sometimes in the province. Even here, there are issues in regard to the European Union in particular. Shall we forego your grapes and your wine and say, no, fine, you can block it or put higher tariffs there so that our chicken can be sold here? Those are the kind of arguments that government have to examine and make the decision in the best interest of the country. So let's have a more serious level of debate about the difficulties of these kinds of decisions. And then, of course, we have our friends who were with us, but really become populist, and then it becomes difficult to take seriously. Because we have said, as ANC, we're a broad church, but we always characterize ourselves as a disciplined force of the left, a bias to the poor, and that's why our history is so strongly intertwined with the organized trade union movement and the South African Communist Party. So that bias to the poor will mean that we will always be close to the workers and understand their struggles very deeply. That is why the alliance is so important to us. And that is why, in fact, it's almost sacred for those who have spent many decades building it, protecting it, and strengthening it. So when it is threatened, we are concerned, and we want to assure those who are salivating a bit at the prospects of what might happen, it won't happen. We have gone through many challenges. We will overcome these as well. But let me come back, Madam Chair, to the script as my previous comrade has put it. And say that let us pay tribute to the courageous acts of Moses Kotane, Moses Mabhida, Elijah Barahai, and many other comrades which led to the labor dispensation that prevails in this country. And indeed, we find its roots in the Freedom Charter, adopted in Kliptown, where we said, there shall be work and security. We went further and said that all who work shall be free to form trade unions, to elect their officers, and to make wage agreements with their employers. The state shall recognize the right and duty of all to work and to draw full unemployment benefits. Men and women of all races shall receive equal pay for equal work. A revolutionary statement at the time, a revolutionary statement of intent. And that's why when I think when Honorable Dlamini spoke of her sister who went to work on the farm and came back with a child, that talks about the reality of life, the reality of oppression at that time. And don't belittle the struggle that it took to bring us to where we are. There shall be a 40-hour working week and national minimum wage, paid annual leave and sick leave for all workers, and maternity leave on full pay for all working. Something we take for granted today. But those many decades ago, that was a dream for so many generations of people. In the Ready to Govern document, our organization also said, and I quote, "We are committed to full participation in the International Labour Organization and will adopt and implement ILO conventions and appropriate recommendations." Again, while fighting battles on the ground, always an internationalist perspective, trying to be at one with the best policy developments in the world. Of course, there will be those who want to try to claim our program of radical economic transformation. And there were those who want to belittle it. But we want to be quite clear that we are serious about it. In fact, in my province, Madam Chair, we say, no, we must go beyond the rhetoric, beyond the slogan. And therefore we understand that there must be a political will, which we think there is, and a very, very strong political will at that. There must be a coherent policy framework, and we think, bar for a few tweakings, which we hope we'll do in June, we have a fairly strong policy framework. There must be a capable state.
MEC, please take your seat. Honorable Schmidt, you are on your feet.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. I would like to hear if the Honourable MEC would take a question from me.
Honourable MEC, would you like to take a question?
I have a flight to catch, so I'll give you 2 minutes before I leave outside. Let me spend my time
He's not willing, Honourable Schmidt.
saying what I came here to say all the way from KwaZulu-Natal.
Please proceed, sir.
So I was saying, we understand we have to have the political will, which we do. We have to have a coherent policy framework, which we do and will tweak in June. We must have a capable state, and that's very important. In fact, last week, we hosted a Chinese delegation, Madam Chair. We hosted a Chinese delegation, Madam Chair. And we, through that exercise, are even learning from the Chinese about how to build an efficient state. We're looking at their practices. Of course, not everything is the same, but they have examples of efficiency and effectiveness which we think we can learn from. We understand that we have to have available budgets to fund these programs of radical economic transformation. We understand also that those budgets must be effectively and properly spent. So it's not a populist approach. This is a serious approach at a strategic plan that will give us step by step an effective radical economic transformation. But let me respond to them. I'm on record in the KwaZulu-Natal legislature, many occasions. I refuse to be defined by the Guptas. I condemned everything that they stand for, and I will continue to do so. They do not define who I am. So, now, today's gathering is crucial because it has given us the opportunity to reflect on all these matters that I have highlighted. Now, the Freedom Charter will continue to guide us as we build our plan going forward. But I want to pose some questions that I think takes the debate to a little bit higher level. Because as my previous speaker said, we want the organized working class to champion their own struggles. And I want to pose certain questions which I think would be relevant.
Pillay, in any case, his time was up. Your time has expired, sir. Ntate Chabangu.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Even if we wanted Moran. Next time. The Honorable Julius.
Chairperson, members and fellow South Africans, workers in our country have fought hard for their rights and political freedom. However, after 23 years, workers in South Africa have only gained political freedom while many are still waiting for the promise of economic freedom to be met. Now, through you, Chairperson, Honorable Ntebe, you know, this is actually a celebration of the booing masses yesterday. Don't be blinded by that yesterday. You kept on saying, we are silent on this, we are silent on this. The workers are not silent. They booed your president. They booed your leaders in all provinces where they were. They were not silent. But I thought you will speak about the 6 billion jobs promised by President Zuma in the State of Nation address. You actually spoke as if you are opposition. Workers don't have this. Workers don't have this. It's because you didn't provide for them. Chairperson, unfortunately, this situation has worsened due to the treacherous decisions by President Zuma when he fires ministers as he pleases to satisfy the greed of the land hand behind the throne. Chairperson, when you are found to have acted unconstitutionally, it's a criminal act. What does it make you? Can someone ask me a question? What does it make you? Who was found actually unconstitutional. It was the president. Now, let me teach you, Honorable Ntebe. Let me give you a life lesson here. Standard & Poor's and Fitch credit rating agencies both cut South Africa's long-term foreign currency debt, and Fitch also cut our long-term local currency debt to sub-investment grade after the midnight cabinet shuffle by President Zuma. Now, this will severely impact on a generation of workers in South Africa. Economics 101. Downgrades will dampen economic growth, and if the economy does not grow, new jobs cannot be created. Retrenchments, Honorable, he caught his flight to Durban, KwaZulu-Natal, of workers will be on the cards. More workers will be unemployed and dependent on the state for their livelihoods. We have already seen massive job losses in the retail, mining and agricultural sectors. Make no mistake, Jacob Zuma did not bring our country to a halt on its own. The ANC is still defending him. Even last night, Deputy Minister, I wonder what you have to say about this. Last night on Justice Factor, the president went on record to say we fully support President Jacob Zuma, that the workers cannot tell them what to do, the branches of the ANC will tell them what to do. I wonder what your alliance partners will say about this. For that, the Minister of Labour of all people, rejecting and actually degrading the voices of workers in our country. It cannot be claimed that Zuma and the ANC's actions are in the best interest of workers. How do we celebrate workers' lives when so many are still unemployed? Chairperson, South Africans have witnessed that when the ANC finds itself being rejected by the people, they regenerate to the invention of slogans and cheap rhetoric to try to pull wool over the eyes of the electorate. They say, Honorable Dlamini, now it's healthy tension. Whoa, I want that tension. Your leaders and the ANC president was booed by the workers. How can that be healthy? Healthy tension, I want that term, please. Now, another term that you use now, radical economic transformation. That's a new buzzword of the ANC, and they don't actually know what it entails. In reality, if you want to be radical, it means faster, swift. You are actually acknowledging that you have failed to transform the economy in the first place. The people of this country gave you a mandate 23 years ago to transform the economy. You have failed dismally. In fact, Chairperson, you know the ANC and President Zuma actually mean radical cadre transformation, a new word for old tricks. Even Kgosana and the SECP have called for President Zuma to step down. You don't want to. Workers are not fooled. This was illustrated yesterday at Kgosana's May Day rallies. Kgosana cancelled their rally speeches as the crowd called for President Zuma or Zuma to go. Now, Deputy Minister, please acknowledge this. Tell us what happened yesterday. What's the impact on your department in terms of this? Is the president actually hampering your job? Because more and more people are losing jobs because of the president. When he opens his mouth, people are losing jobs in this country. Now, when we celebrate Workers' Day, Chairperson,
Honorable
this year,
Julius,
we should have been...
Honorable Julius, I have a member on the floor, Honorable Zwane. Honorable Zwane. Honorable Zwane.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. I just wish to know if the honorable member can take a question.
Honorable Julius, do you wish to take a question?
Yes, I'm obliged to. Such a beautiful lady. She will.
Honorable Julius, I will not have that condescending attitude towards women members of this House. You will take a question, but not because she's a beautiful lady. Honorable Zwane, your question, please.
Thank you, Chairperson. I just want to know when the honorable member is going to start telling the people of South Africa what the DA is doing for the people, instead of talking about the ANC. If he believes so much in the DA, why doesn't he talk about the programs of the DA?
Thank you, ma'am. Honorable Julius?
Thank you, Chairperson. I actually always talk about the programs of the DA. It's actually very sad that you don't want to listen. But come 2019, I will stand here and every day tell you about the programs that we will have in this country because the ANC is a dying horse. Chairperson, when we celebrate Workers' Day this year, we should have been celebrating the achievements in employment, increased employment, more happy homes in South Africa, but sadly, this is not the case. Honorable, what's his name now? Honorable Pillay, you know, you're singing from the Bell Pottinger hymn book, but you're rejecting the Guptas. I don't know how you work. But today in 2017, Chairperson, we see opposition parties, civil society, and religious organizations coming together in a united front as the freedom movement. Honorable Chairperson, change is coming in 2019. I thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Malaza from Mpumalanga.
Honorable Chair, Deputy Minister, honorable members of the House, you will pardon me, I will ensure that I stick to the debate because it's worth it. As a former worker myself who have led the struggles of workers, it's worth celebrating 20 years of workers' rights. Honorable Chair, 4 days ago, on the 27th of April, we celebrated the destruction of apartheid and the completion of 23 years of democracy. Chair, I am born of those men and women who had to travel distances to access a place of work. I am a grandson of those who had to queue to the house of a farm owner to collect a check, having taught learners for a month, paid by the master because it was his own farm and the school was built in the area that he claims it belongs to him. I am a son of those daughters. I am a son and daughters of those parents who were denied basic and democratic rights. Hence, I say today it is worth it that we celebrate these 20 years of workers' rights. Our parents, educated as they were, but the farm owner became their boss because the school is built in his own farm. In some instances, even telling them on what content they should give to poor learners who were sharing the same color as me. Force them to live and work where the government of the day ordered them to do so at that time. They were barred from all better paying jobs and even told them who they could or could not marry. Despite challenges, thanks to the struggles of the working class led by the Tripartite Alliance under the stewardship of the African National Congress. Today, we have a democratic constitution and laws which guarantees freedoms and human rights. Today, workers can vote, can join a party, can protest. Despite challenges facing us in this current moment, workers are better off today than before. After decades of slavery, their condition has improved. It is a fact. Under this government led by the ANC, workers have won important constitutional guarantees. Rights to a fair labor practice, rights to form and join a trade union, to strike and picket, and the rights to a collective bargaining. I'm speaking here, I'm a witness of that. I have enjoyed those rights as a worker at some point myself. Whatever the difficulties we're facing now, whatever the problems may be today, workers will never be fooled, for they know, and they know it to be true, that a better South Africa is in the hands of the ANC-led government. It is a fact that under the ANC-led government, the condition of workers has improved. Hence today, we're celebrating 20 years of workers' rights. More workers who are domestic workers have access to houses today. When they go home, they have a different environment. They have a house that has a flushing toilet. They have a house that is electrified. These are things that they never enjoyed before 1994. Most citizens who are workers today have access to antiretroviral treatment, which is something that was never given by any government, but this government, led by the African National Congress under the stewardship of President Jacob Zuma. Not even discriminated in their working environment. However, Chair, we agree that much still needs to be done, particularly on farm workers and farm dwellers who are victims day by day by their employers. And we expect some of the speakers who were here before to speak about those farm dwellers, those farm workers who are ill-treated by their employers who are white in color. Sadly, House Chair, we only see them at some point transported by those who are their employers at the back of a truck, buggies, tractors during elections time. Of course, by those of whom to them only their vote counts. For us in the ruling party, since their lives matters, our task of the moment is to ensure that we attend to these issues and continue to walk the journey with them and improve their lives as farm dwellers and farm workers. Honorable Chair, the eviction of people from farmers on which they have houses, which they occupied for a long time, years, not even allowed to bury their loved ones. This is what our people are experiencing on the farm that are owned by some individuals who belong to particular political parties. When here they come and grandstand and claim that nothing has been done. That also, Chair, is illegal, and therefore we need to make sure that such problems are addressed. However, for those who regard themselves as our masters, it continues to be normal. Day by day, people are killed because they've picked up a flower in a farm, because they understood to be normal, it can be done anyhow, but a black child is killed. For us as an African National Congress, it's worth celebrating today the workers' rights that we have gained. Workers have continued to fight for their freedom, that among other things, they can use that freedom to change their lives for better. But in some farms, their lives continues to regress. They are being abused. They are being treated very badly. But those who come and stand before us here want us to accept that it is normal. It is for that reason, House Chair, that as we celebrate these 20 years for workers' rights, we cannot forget where we come from as a nation, as a people. What has characterized workers in our country has been the determination not to be isolated from the rest of the society, not to be misled by the opinion that unions must only concern themselves with their shop floor issues. Today, workers have all these rights because they knew that workers' rights could not be realized outside a democratic South Africa. They have all these rights because we are free today. House Chair, however, the situation is facing us today in our country, and what our critics say and those in opposition continue to say, we are certain that workers' rights and the life of workers are in a better shape. Workers of this land know, and they know it to be true, that it is only the African National Congress, the ANC, that has the interest of workers at heart. A journey has been traveled with workers side by side for decades. The work to create a better South Africa continues. The struggle to improve the condition of workers continues under the stewardship of the African National Congress, and the victory is certain. Let's therefore draw to the conclusion, Honorable Chair, and perhaps go back from where we started, that what characterizes us as the ruling party are the scars and the pain that we have shared with our workers when we're fighting for their rights. Many who are workers today know very well the South Africa we live in today as workers. It's a much better place than the country they lived in before 1994. The rights that are celebrated today will continue to be celebrated for decades to come, have been realized through the struggle of workers side by side with the liberation movement. New laws have been opened. Many have improved working conditions in health and safety in the workplace. No longer do we have a government that sees farmers as not decent, as not deserving for the same rights. No longer will be used as of child labor will be allowed, as workers themselves are their own liberators. We'll work with them to change their lives for better. House Chair, we're celebrating these workers' rights today with our head held up high, that a better tomorrow is coming, and it is only in the hands of the African National Congress come 2019.
Order, members. The Deputy Chief Whip in the Western Cape, the Honorable Joseph.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chair, Honorable Deputy Minister, Honorable members, and fellow South Africans. It is indeed a day for workers to celebrate. And history will remind us, as we reflect, that workers played a significant role in the freedom that we as workers enjoy today. Honorable members, I think we are called honorable members, but I think we should also today call ourselves honorable workers. I think we can call ourselves honorable servants because we are mandated and elected to serve. As a previous shop steward myself, way back in the 80s, 82, I felt honored, and I was honored to be elected as a shop steward in the workplace. I had the opportunity to represent and to speak for other workers. Honorable members, and I stand here because other workers in the workplace have given me the opportunity to come up the ranks and represent other workplaces. But I think there's a point that we are missing when we speak about worker, employer, employee relations. I've noticed that a farmer is a worker. I've noticed that a CEO of a company is a worker, equally to any other worker in any designation that that person finds themselves. And I think we as members, in what position we are elected, be it the President, the Premier, an honourable member, a public representative, we are workers. And to build South Africa after '94, it required workers and employees to bring hope, to build our economy for all to benefit, and for workers to become the captain of their own ship. When people work they are treated fairly at the work, then there is a better relationship. There's trust, there's respect for each other, and it becomes obvious. It becomes noticeable. And workers should not be scared to speak out when there's any form of discrimination. The workforce must know that when they report such incidents, there will be action. Transformation in the workplace is work in progress. Honourable members, the worker history should not be underestimated. The international labour relations, national worker organizations, including our organizations that were disadvantaged before apartheid, have contributed after 1994 to a concept of organized labour. The famous slogan will always remain with workers: an injury to one is an injury to all. And the more people are organized, the more determined workers become, the more they will represent the issues of workers. And workers form the backbone of the economy, and workers deserve the respect. In agriculture, in exports, in food security, workers play that key role. In the Western Cape, 23.6% of our people are unemployed, of which 41.7% is the youth between the age 25 to 44. Poverty and inequality are the challenges of the day. And when things go wrong, we look for who to blame. We show intolerance towards each other. We show disrespect for life and property and for people. Let us debate what we can do for the unemployed. Those people who must also put food on the table, pay their rent, buy their electricity, and pay for transport. They are no different to us who earn salaries. The Western Cape government, in its efforts, introduced a program called equity schemes. This program gives farmers the opportunity to adjust their business models to include workers in the profit that they generate, in particular farming communities who have worked for decades on these farms. This program includes identification of skills, identification of various training needs, the higher level of work responsibility, in some instances, ownership over projects on farms. This program is not the end result, but merely the beginning of addressing inequality. And during the years of separate development, it is important that we note it was a constant battle for better working conditions. But we can today say that in South Africa, we have achieved. We have achieved a lot for worker rights, worker conditions, but we also know that there is a lot that must still be done. And as we have achieved another year of celebration in this holiday, we know that the rallies we have, the meetings we have, the conversations we have are very significant to build a united South Africa and a workforce. And this battle for South Africans today continues, and it will continue, and the struggle will continue on a day-to-day basis so that people do not lose faith in the system, but they have the privilege, all people have the privilege to work and celebrate Workers' Day. We must ensure that the standard of living and working conditions for all workers in the Western Cape where we govern must continue to improve day by day. Honourable Chair, it is very important that I think the next debate that we're going to have about this topic, that we compare the studies that we have done or that SA Stats have done and what the conditions are of workers to ensure that equal opportunities and rewards for people who want to promote themselves and other workers, that there is an assessment about it. I must also highlight that the work of the Western Cape government is work in progress. In particular, the stance we must take against violence, violence against farm workers and women and children. And in particular, where children underage is used, we will take a stand, and this government will not tolerate it. Honourable Chair, I need to say that we must accept the downgrade in the economy is putting us under pressure, and it will affect the workers. And I think we must put our heads together and not only criticize and bring constructive criticism to the debate, but I think we need to find solutions that is of common interest to all of us. This Workers' Day must remind us that we have achieved, but there is a lot of work to be done. Honourable members, the truth is that unemployed people already are experiencing this junk status. We must bring hope. Honourable members, it is expected of us as leaders to make the right decisions, to create the right policies, to create the right environment, to create equal opportunities for all. It is expected of us to make decisions that will create the right economic environment for the state, the private sector, create a better climate, create hope, build sustainable partnerships. Honourable members, let us put South Africa first, and let help that South Africa becomes a better place for all who live in it, including our workers. I thank you.
Thank you, MEC. The Honourable Makue.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, the Honourable Deputy Minister, the MECs that are still with us, members of the House. My noble contribution to this debate is highlighting the ANC government's commitment to work tirelessly to create decent work and sustainable livelihoods. It is equally important to also highlight South Africa's quest to remain in the forefront in the pursuit of a national, regional, and international agenda for the creation of decent work and protection of workers in general. Already during 2005, the African National Congress has taken note of the strike action by members of the Congress of South African Trade Unions, which began in the Western Cape and Eastern Cape on the 3rd of October 2005 as part of the Federation's Jobs and Poverty campaign. When we celebrate the Workers' Day in 2017, we want to revisit jobs and poverty together. In embarking on this action, COSATU members were exercising their hard-won right in pursuit of their interest and the interests of society more broadly. The ANC has made significant, though not enough progress since 2005. The ANC shares worker concerns about unemployment and job losses. Cheap labor and the lack of equity continues to be serious violations of the rights of workers. The exploitation of foreign nationals, domestic workers, casual laborers, and farm workers demand urgent redress, particularly for us in this democratic government. It is for this reason that the ANC has placed radical economic development and job creation at the center of its program and the National Development Plan of government. The ANC is committed to minimize the number of strikes and work stoppages in our efforts to grow the South African economy. We need new attitudes, especially from employers, the most important of which is that pay must always accord with performance, not time spent on the job. We also need to address the ocean of disparities and inequalities between the workers in different industries and workers in different roles. We inherited a system of apartheid capitalism and what we are in the ANC calling colonialism of a special type. The reservation, in particular, of predominantly blue-collar jobs for privileged racial groups was an inherent part of apartheid's racial capitalism. We have heard some members coming to this podium longing for those flesh spots of apartheid. We won't go back there. We will build a South Africa where there is equal participation and absolute respect for workers and worker organizations. Job reservation is an injustice that's still haunting some members of this House, and it is being defended by those parties in this democratic parliament, and they are ignoring the fundamental rights of workers. And therefore, Honorable Ntebe shouldn't be surprised when they promote the interests of bosses and say nothing about the workers. The exploitation of workers, and especially the exploitation of women in the workplace in ensuring maximum profits for companies, regardless of the social consequences, created a class of impoverished workers called the working poor.
Honorable Makwe, please take your seat. Honorable Schmidt.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. I would like to hear if the Honourable Member will take a question from me.
Honorable Makwe, will you take a question?
My apologies, Honourable Member, but my time is confined here. We can talk at a time that is convenient to the both of us. Thank you, Chairperson.
Please proceed. You won't take it, sir.
Chairperson, labour brokers are aggravating such exploitation. And those that are trying to intervene in my debate will not succeed. Because as a member of the ANC, we are not just advocating for jobs, but we are advocating for decent work and decent wages to go with that. In line with Section 23 of our Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Our progressive trade unions have been part of the liberation struggle against colonialism and the apartheid rulers whose voices are trying to distort me. trade union federations that you don't know of, Honorable Member, like the South African Congress of Trade Unions, FOSATO, COSATO, NACTU, FEDUSA, and others, struggled side by side with the ANC and the mass democratic movement in ensuring that the rights of workers will be respected and protected. And it is in commemorating the gains of those trade union federations that we are able to stand here today. We also are mindful that each year, millions of school leavers join the labor market. Within this context, employers are becoming more capital incentive, investing in expensive machines to get the work done with the minimum participation of workers. And this is something that this government is giving attention to. A small group of privileged trade union workers and a growing band of unemployed, underemployed, and also underpaid workers has become a new challenge for trade unions in this democracy. This reality is threatening the unity of progressive trade unions, and we see it happening as we celebrate International Workers' Day 2017. The ANC endorses the International Workers' slogan that an injury to one is an injury to all. And we can proudly sing, Hlanganani basebenzi. The reality of our global economic framework militates for a lean and trim workforce. Introduction of technology, and particularly within the context of the fourth industrial revolution, workers are pushed towards a leaner workforce. This applies even more to unskilled labor. It is important that trade union leaders, as we celebrate International Workers' Day this year, are mindful and understand the changing environment that the workers are confronting at the moment. The employment and exploitation of casual workers, farm workers, and domestic workers, as well as short-term employment contracts, are unable to provide sustainable high livelihoods. Migrant workers have for centuries been part and parcel of South Africa's workforce. They built the proud democracy at an economic level where we are today. We will therefore not discriminate against migrant workers who have contributed towards the economic gains that we have made in this country. Chairperson, there may be instances where industrial relations between employers and workers are more important for our survival than wage increases, and that we together get the labor movement into better shape by cutting restrictive practices. South Africa has to build a labor movement with a reputation for realistic and practical policies that benefit workers. The National Development and Labor Council, NEDLAC, serves as a forum to promote negotiation and consultation between government, labor, business, and civil society in what we call social partners. It is this government that has made sure that NEDLAC is not only established, but indeed that it works for our country and our people. It is equally imperative that workers must experience maximum rewards in wages and benefits, complemented by indirect returns from government by way of homes, health, education, training, and social benefits that the Honorable Dlamini has addressed for us earlier on. Chairperson, it is this democratic government that in 1995 introduced the Labor Relations Act number 966, promoting freedom of association and general protection for workers. It sets the framework for collective bargaining. It supports the right to strike and also the rights for workers to take action against lockouts. It encourages workplace forums. The Labor Relations Act facilitates the establishment of trade unions and employer organizations, and very importantly, set dispute resolution mechanisms. This Labor Relations Act, developed, adopted, and promoted by this democratic government, lays the foundation for industrial peace. South Africa is in urgent need of a positive approach to challenges that will reduce unemployment, increase wages, and regain our competitiveness in productivity. The world of work is undergoing rapid changes. Our youth, in particular, has to be appropriately skilled and trained for these changes. The CETAs have an important role to play in this regard. The ANC-led alliance continues to work also on immediate measures to address job losses in specific sectors, such as the rollout of a plan to respond to the crisis facing the clothing, textile, and footwear industry, as we are able to peruse from the reports of the Department of Trade and Industry and also the Department of Economic Development. The automotive sector and the construction industry are those industries that we will concentrate on during the year of 2017. Chairperson, the challenge of creating work and fighting poverty requires the coordinated actions of all sectors of society working together to progressively realize the ANC's goal of a better life for all. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, sir. The Deputy Minister of Labour, the Honourable Holomisa.
Thank you very much, Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces. I want to thank also members of the House for having made this debate possible. I know that you had invited the Minister of Labour to come and participate and give the perspective of the Ministry and Department of Labour. Unfortunately, she has not been able to come by herself due to other responsibilities demanding of her attention in the department. She herself is a trade unionist, and it is within her makeup that the interests and rights of workers be held paramount by the African National Congress-led government. I am not aware of what she said. I don't know if Mr. Julius is here on television. But from what you said, it was something to the effect that the president is the president of the ANC and the country, and the workers, especially members of COSATU that were there, are as such members, and therefore the one need not necessarily dictate to the other. As I say, I'm not sure I didn't hear her, but as has been said by other honorable members in this debate, we are an alliance of independent bodies. And therefore, there will be instances where there will be a difference of opinion in a particular instance. And in fact, instead of lamenting what happened yesterday, where the president and other leaders of the alliance were not able to speak, we should be applauding the fact that we are such a democracy, that when workers in this particular regard are not happy with what the leadership is doing, they are able to express themselves. Surely, therefore, the leadership, in the form of the alliance leaders as well as particularly government, have to take heed of what the citizens, in this particular instance, the workers, are saying. In another instance, in another era, when we were led by the ancestors of some of the other parties here, the might of the state would have been unleashed on those who dared to seek to prevent the president from addressing the people that he wanted to address. So these are gains that we need to celebrate instead of using them as a sign that all is wrong and that there's a state of chaos. There are so many correct things, Madam Chair, that have been said here, both by members of the opposition and members of the ruling party. For instance, the question of the high rate of unemployment. It is a fact that the rate of unemployment is unacceptably high. But the causes range from a number of issues. They cannot be attributed solely to the ANC as a government. As we all know, the government led by the ANC has come up with all sorts of policies, programs, projects, laws that are aimed exactly at addressing, among others, the problem of unemployment. Only last week, we were part of discussions in the ILO, International Labour Organization, in Geneva, where we were talking about, among other things, the question of unemployment. The slow growth in the economy is one of the causes of this problem. And it is a problem that does not only afflict South Africa, it afflicts other parts of the world. But what we've been able to understand is that our problems are more acute compared to other countries because of the history that we have. Our history is obviously different from the history of other nations. We are still talking about 20 years of celebrating the rights of workers. Yet other countries have had more time than we have to talk about that phenomenon. I want to agree, therefore, with the Deputy Chief Whip of the DA in the Western Cape, who said, let us all put South Africa first. Let us be positive. Let us do what is necessary for us to do, instead of trying to pull each other down. One of the speakers, I think from the DA, spoke about the problem of the poultry industry at the present moment. He ridiculed the fact that government has set up a committee to look into the matter. You see, as everybody knows, we are living in a globalized economic situation. You will be looking at one point only to find that there are consequences that were not intended by the agreement that we entered into. MEC Pillay here spoke about the motor industry that is benefiting from some of the international agreements that we have entered into, which have somehow resulted in the loss of job opportunities in the poultry industry. That could never have been the intention, that international agreements we enter into with the EU as well would be intended to result in the destruction of jobs for our poor people. Now, nonetheless, DTI has already imposed a 13% safeguard duty on chicken from the EU, which will be in place until 3 July, while the investigation spoken about is being undertaken. The behavior of the two companies also that have been affected by this problem of the poultry industry, controlling the industry, it doesn't help also. The Competition Tribunal, for instance, has issued the two companies with anti-competition fines to indicate that the cause of the problem is not merely the matter of the agreement that has been entered into, resulting in the dumping, as has been said, of the poultry from other countries. So, ladies and gentlemen, honorable members, May Day celebrations, as have been said, have a long history in South Africa and are reported to have been first celebrated as early as 1895 by South African workers. These celebrations were, however, sporadic and held by white workers. It was only in 1928 that the celebrations were taken up on a mass basis by African workers. It continued to be celebrated unofficially for many years until 1961, when the Nationalist Party government acted against Workers' Day by excluding it from wage determinations and industrial council agreements. After the re-emergence of the independent unions, there was a strong campaign in the 1980s to win back May Day as a day on which workers could celebrate their unity and struggle for improved worker rights and working conditions. In early December 1985, worker delegates from all over South Africa met in Durban to bring into being Kgosana. Let us remember that it is partly due to workers' struggles in the 1980s and 1990s that May Day is now officially recognized as a day on which workers celebrate their unity and struggle for improved rights and working conditions. When the ANC came into power in 1994, May 1 became an officially recognized public holiday in the country. On May Day, South Africans joined the world in celebrating International Workers' Day. It is a time when we celebrate international solidarity, the social and economic achievements that workers, labor movements, and progressive governments have made across the world. As we celebrate Workers' Month, we should take time to remember some of the stalwarts that made significant contributions towards advancing the cause of the working people during the early days of the SACTU, COSATU, and other progressive trade unions in the country. Among these heroes of the workers' struggles, we can count the likes of comrades Moses Kotane, J.B. Marx, Oscar Mpeta, Elijah Bahai, Biline, John Komomo, Emma Mashinini, Stephen Dlamini, Mark Shope, John Gadimeng, Leon Levy, Cleopas Sibande, Leslie Masina, Petrus Bielefeld, Lucy Mvubelo, and many others. During this month, it is important to look at the gains that workers have achieved under this democratic government. One of the gains is the ability to engage in collective bargaining. A number of members have referred to this. Collective bargaining is central to our labor market policy and to the Labor Relations Act. Trade unions must indeed continue recruiting more members to ensure efficient, orderly, and stable collective bargaining in order to address the worker needs. This will obviously improve workers' conditions of employment and lead to a competitive labor market. We must always remember the purpose of the Labor Relations Act, which is to advance economic development, social justice, labor peace, and the democratization of the workplace. Our labor laws have enabled us to extend protection to vulnerable workers. They are workers who are covered by neither collective bargaining nor unionization. To further protect vulnerable workers against abusive practices, we introduced the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, which empowered the department to develop sectoral wage determinations. These sectoral determinations set minimum employment conditions and wages, thereby reducing the vulnerability of the workers. Chairperson, the labor market continues to be plagued by atypical forms of employment, which threaten to reverse the workers' gains. As government, we had to respond to the challenges posed by the temporary employment services, or labor brokers, and introduce measures to prohibit the abusive practices in the labor market due to this phenomenon. To this end, the labor law amendments we embarked on enable workers to claw back the core rights that were lost due to the emergence of these atypical forms of employment. The government has steadfastly strived for non-racialism, non-sexism, and democracy in our land. There can be no compromise on these principles, and May Day gives us a good opportunity to recommit ourselves to these principles, to ensure equity in the workplace, and to eliminate unfair discrimination. We introduced the Employment Equity Act, which seeks to eradicate unfair discrimination on, amongst other bases, race, gender, age, and sexual orientation. This legislation also seeks to eliminate unfair discrimination on issues of pay by ensuring equal pay for work of equal value. The current low economic growth forces employers to downsize their workforce by retrenching workers. Given the projected low economic growth, it seems to us that retrenchments will be the order of the day. As government, we have to ensure that we cushion workers from the devastating effects of such loss of work. Chairperson, the Unemployment Insurance Fund stands ready to provide social protection to the retrenched workers. We have recently amended the Unemployment Insurance Fund Act to also extend workers' benefits to 12 months as opposed to 8 months. It is disheartening that even as we celebrate Workers' Month, workers across the land continue to be injured, maimed, and contracting occupational diseases at work. The penalties prescribed by the Occupational Health and Safety Act do not seem to serve as a deterrent to the offending companies. To improve the protection of workers, we are amending the Occupational Health and Safety Act to increase the penalties imposed by courts to the non-complying employers. Most importantly, we have, amongst other things, ensured that employees leave a dangerous workplace when their health and safety are in danger, without fear of victimization by the employer. Very soon, social protection will be extended to domestic workers. The Compensation for Occupational Injuries and Diseases Act is being amended to give effect to this. The International Labour Organization's Declaration on Fundamental Principles and Rights at Work, adopted in 1998, clearly states that workers' rights are universal and apply to all people, regardless of their level of economic development. The rights include freedom of association and recognition of the right to collective bargaining, the elimination of forced labor, the abolition of child labor, and the elimination of discrimination in respect of employment and occupation. As a member state of the ILO, South Africa firmly subscribes to these rights as demonstrated through our labor laws. We also continue to fiercely advocate for workers' rights in regional and international platforms that we participate in, like the SADC Employment and Labor Sector, the African Union Special Technical Committee on Employment and Social Affairs, the G20 Ministers of Employment and Labor Forum, and BRICS, to name but a few. We also give effect to international cooperation, harmonization of decent work principles and worker rights through a number of bilateral agreements that we have entered into with countries in Africa and globally. I hope workers will celebrate Workers' Month, knowing that South Africa has joined other progressive countries that have introduced the national minimum wage. As honorable members know, Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa has announced that in May 2018, South Africa's first national minimum wage will be introduced. I am happy that no worker will be paid below the set national minimum wage. As a department, we are strengthening the inspectorate to ensure that no employer will avoid paying the set wage. To continue protection of workers' rights, our labor market needs strong trade unions now more than ever. There are many challenges in the labor market and many vulnerable workers that need the organization and services provided by trade unions. Weak trade unions reduce workers to collective begging. Therefore, it is important for trade unions to recruit members, to remain representative and strong, and to remain democratic. Trade unions must be member-driven and controlled. As I conclude, let us celebrate the achievements and the determination of the South African trade union movement today. Let us also celebrate the international labor movement. But let us be mindful of the challenges that lie ahead and the responsibility that we all share in assisting and protecting vulnerable workers and to help our country meet its developmental objectives. As we celebrate Workers' Month, we should recommit ourselves to the achievement of inclusive economic growth and the attainment of social justice. With the few minutes left for me, Madam Chairperson, allow me to say my sense worth of what has been said about the issue of economic, or rather of downgrades. One of the members, Honorable, said that every time the President opens his mouth, we are downgraded. And as a result, workers lose jobs. Now, we should be careful, therefore, that we don't say things that are going to lead into such a situation. But let us go beyond that. Let us go beyond that. Let us talk about the system. Let us talk about the system that is such that if it disagrees with the head of state, democratically elected, it decides the system to allow 90 billion rands to leave the country. What is the conscience of these people who are doing this, telling them? Don't they know that it is not the president who is going to suffer? It is the workers, the million workers that we're talking about, that are going to suffer, the poor. Why don't we examine the system so that it becomes also accountable? We're told that in order for a country to prosper in terms of its economy in the free market system, there must be democracy, there must be accountability. Now, why is it that you don't question a system that does as it pleases, resulting in the damage that is caused, to the workers? Why is it that we are not, who benefits most? Is it not the capitalists, the business, that are benefiting as long as this system that is unaccountable endures? I said, let us be careful as leaders whenever we do or say certain things. But I am saying, let us go beyond that and challenge the systems that continue to exploit us, even as we subscribe to the tenets that we were told are conducive to economic growth. We are a democracy, and yet we are taken advantage of by people who don't account, who are not called upon to explain their activities. But as I said, and as has been said, let us all work together. The laws that we have in place, the laws that we say are not working in the best interests of the people, let us all ensure that they are implemented as leaders, as members of parliament, as members of the representative parties of our parliament. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The Honorable Khai.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, and also like to thank members that have participated in this debate, especially the Deputy Minister and the special delegates. Actually, the summary of the DA input in this debate is that we should not celebrate achievements. Perhaps the main reason is that, perhaps through you, Honorable Chairperson, is that they first don't look at these legislations that were passed in context as to what was the situation before all these legislations were passed. But I would understand with regard to my honorable friend, my homeboy. You know, during the Durban, 1973 Durban strikes, he was only 5 years old. So he won't know the situation, because there at the time, workers were dismissed for demanding recognition of their trade unions, let alone wage increase, just the recognition of their trade unions. Thousands of workers were dismissed. Today, it's very easy for trade unions to be recognized. Very easy, simple. If you prove 50% plus one majority, you are recognized. You don't have to even go to the streets to fight for that. They say we must not celebrate these achievements. We know it's true that with the aid, they don't see why we should celebrate this achievement. In fact, in 2013, on the 24th of October, the Democratic Alliance in the National Assembly voted together with the ANC on the issue of employment equity. Several weeks later, the then leader of the Democratic Alliance wrote to Parliament apologizing that the DA voted in favor of the Employment Equity Act. And then they had to wait for that particular bill to come to the NCOP. And in the NCOP, they oppose that particular bill. So we understand why they are opposed to all these laws. You can go to Hansard, starting with the Labor Relations Act, and see what were their arguments. Basic Conditions of Employment Act, see what were their arguments. You know, Skills Development Act, Skills Development Levy, you see what were their arguments against the rights of workers. So we are not surprised when they say they don't see why we should celebrate. Because what we do as workers, we celebrate the achievement and then fight for more. So that's what is happening. Also with the organization itself, the African National Congress, that's why on regular basis we have conferences so that we assess the impact of our policies and improve on those policies. With regard to, I agree with the Honorable Deputy Minister with regard to the issue of the Constitution, that this is democracy. What happened yesterday was an expression of democracy as enshrined in the Constitution of the country. That particular, I'll just quote the actual section in the Bill of Rights, that everyone has a right to peacefully and unarmed to assemble, to demonstrate and picket and to present petition. That is democracy in practice. Unlike what the DA is doing, I was very surprised and shocked what could happen if the DA were to be in power. Professor Malikane make his views on the economy. As enshrined in the Constitution, the right to expression. They demand that he must be fired for expressing his views. That is enshrined in the Constitution, that a person has a right to express his or her views. So that's why then we are not surprised as the African National Congress. That's why I would like, especially Honorable Joseph, as you indicated through your chair, that you were a shop steward. If you can mentor our member there of the House, Honorable Makwebo, and take him through what was the situation with the right to strike, for example. What was the situation with regard to maternity leave?
Honorable Khai, your time is up.
Thank you, sir.
Order, members. Honorable members, I think we should thank the special delegates for graciously coming to us. This is indeed our first sitting after a reasonable break, and I'm sure I have seen a lot of members doing what is not so honorable in the House, falling asleep. It is not, no, it is actually disrespectful for the people who watch you on TV. It is, because as much as one member said we are all workers, we do earn. This country has made a distinction. In the past, there were workers because you were getting a wage, and you were salaried because you were white collar. There was a distinction. We all want to say that we earn our living, and we earn that living very honorably. And that is staying awake and respecting the electorate. So I want to thank the special delegates. All of you have been behaving beautifully, and I hope that we see you over and over again in the House. And of course, I want to thank the Deputy Minister who has had to rush off for coming to take part with us here. Members, this concludes the business of the day. You are requested to remain standing until the procession has left and this House is adjourned.